Welkom bij wederom een speciale aflevering van de Nederlandse Kubernetes podcast. De podcast over Kubernetes voor iedereen. Jan en ik waren op de Kubernetes Community Days in Amsterdam. En daar hebben wij onder andere gesproken met Ara Pulido van DataDog en met Meg Stefuli, een van de organisatoren van dit geweldige community event. In het eerste gedeelte van deze podcast gaan wij in gesprek met Ara. Zij is werkzaam als Developer Relations bij DataDog. Zij werkt al ruim 20 jaar in de IT en vertelt onder andere over DataDog en over haar keynote, welke over de Gateway API in Kubernetes ging. Ook deelt ze haar ideeën over waar Kubernetes en de markt naartoe bewegen. Heel interessant allemaal. We're talking to Ara Pulido. Is that the correct pronunciation?
Yes, Pulido.
Pulido. Okay, great. So, Ara, can you please introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yeah, sure. I currently work as a developer advocate for a company called DataDog. DataDog is basically a monitoring and security platform to help companies improve the observability and security of their infrastructure and applications. That includes, of course, Kubernetes as a platform and also the workloads that you run on Kubernetes. DataDog itself runs on Kubernetes, so we are like a little bit meta on that front. And my background, it's been mostly all the time on system engineering. I spent quite a bit of time working for Canonical on their Linux distribution.
Canonical?
Yes, in Ubuntu for 9 years. And then I switched. At Canonical, I was working mostly on devices, so IoT devices, laptops, phone when that existed.
That was a great step. I think that was a great opportunity.
Yes, maybe it was too early, or I don't know. Yeah, but well, I worked on that as well, and then. When I moved on from Canonical, I switched from devices to servers and mostly containers and Kubernetes. So I was working for a couple of years developing tools for Kubernetes developers at a company called Bitnami. And from then I moved to DataDog as a developer advocate, and I've been there for 3.5 years. And at DataDog, I because of my background, I mostly focus on the Kubernetes ecosystem, so the cloud-native ecosystem, and building nice stuff with open source tools and creating demos so people who run Kubernetes understand the importance and how to make the most out of the observability tooling, but also the paradigm, the trying to how. Not really about the tooling, but really a change of mindset on how your experience as an operator or as a developer can improve thanks to observability.
Okay, cool. So you've been in software for almost 20 years, according to your LinkedIn profile.
Yes,
maybe a little bit earlier.
That it's aged me, yeah, but yes.
Okay.
Yeah, basically, I went to university, computer science. Like I have a very classic background. I did computer science at university, and 20 years later I'm here. So not a career switcher or anything exciting. I finished college in 2003, more or less.
Okay.
It's 20 years.
20 years,
cool.
Yeah, cool. And what are some of the most of big impactful shifts you have seen lately in software development?
From the very beginning, like in these 20 years.
Yeah, or it could be a shorter period, but something. What's the thing that stood out?
I think biggest change that I've seen, especially in my case, which I've been mostly not at the beginning of my career, but it was the thing that I wanted to break in. It was system engineering, and so that's what I've been doing over the past maybe 14 years, and I think it's the move to the cloud, and that completely changed how people think about applications, how people they deploy applications, how they operate applications, and I think that's the biggest change that I've seen, because obviously with 20 years of experience, I've seen
A lot of things.
Yeah, I've seen the classic software company with a server rack running their applications on the same office, and that everybody knew that it was the room where they can go when it's in Spain.
Spend a lot of time in those rooms.
When it's 38 degrees outside in the summer, people say, okay, I'll go to the server's room because that's the coolest
one, yeah.
And that's obviously completely changed. We don't see that anymore, which also brings a lot of opportunity of innovation, because for small companies, for startups, being able to have an application in production without having to do that investment, even if it's a small server, you don't have to even do that investment. You can basically try it out on the cloud. And scale out if it goes well,
but it's more expensive.
It is more expensive when you're successful, but it gives you.
That's
But
it gives you a penalty when you're successful.
Yeah, but that's
the other way around.
But it's a good thing. I mean, if it becomes a little bit expensive, it's because you're growing, which is, as a startup, I guess that's what you want to get to. But that beginning is a lot easier. Like you don't have to even run. Even this is a Kubernetes conference, but you don't have to run Kubernetes if you don't need to. There are plenty of options like serverless function as a service, or VMs directly, or managed Kubernetes if you want to go that step. But I think the ability of going to zero to production had shortened the amount of time a lot in the past 20 years.
That's powerful, yeah.
Yeah, that's very powerful.
And how's DataDog then? I know New Relic, your competitor, really good, but it's more my maybe not experience yet. But how does DataDog manage to monitor then the Kubernetes clusters?
Yes. So there are two ways in which. So DataDog, it's basically a data platform that you get a lot of telemetry in, and then you get a lot of ways to analyze that data and make use of it. And you have things like, obviously, monitors and dashboards and things like that. The way you get data in, there are mainly two ways. One is what we call integration. So if you're running, for example, on AWS, you can get your account in and you will get data directly from AWS.
Oh, that's cool.
That's a way. But you can also run, we have an agent, the DataDog agent that runs...
Inside Kubernetes.
Yeah, it's an open source agent that you can run either on bare metal. It's the same code that you run on bare metal, that you run on your VMs. Even on AWS. On AWS, you can actually do both. Run the agent on your VMs, but also get data from AWS itself. And that same agent, if you're running on a Kubernetes cluster, is running as a daemon set. So it makes sure that it runs on every node. And what it does when it's running on the node, it's not running as a sidecar or anything. So you just run one unit per node, and it's going to gather data from the node itself. So system data from the node, because it's a VM anyway. So you have to manage that. Yeah. But it also gathers data from all the containers that are running on that node. So it has some integrations with the kubelet, so it gathers information from the kubelet, but also has integrations with the container runtime that it gathers information from there as well. So all in all, once it goes to DataDog, you have data from your hosts, but also from...
So we don't need Prometheus anymore?
Definitely you don't need Prometheus if you're a DataDog user. And I guess that's the whole story. I mean, it's the classic software business option of buy versus build. One, Prometheus, it's a great project, and it does a lot of things. And actually, we support the open metrics format, which is the same format that Prometheus does. So if you have Prometheus metrics, you can also collect those in. But obviously, the idea is that if you run Prometheus, you also have to be an expert in Prometheus, which is probably not your business case.
No, of course.
you will have another things to care of, and we bring in all that knowledge about observability and all the analytics that you can do with metrics, etc. So you can't forget about it. So DataDog is you only deploy the agent, but all the backend is a software as a service, so it's running on our own service.
Okay, cool. So you talked about the Gateway API.
Yes.
And why people should use that instead of the Ingress. Can you tell us, our listeners who weren't at your keynote, a little bit of why that is?
So Ingress is a resource, part of the core API in Kubernetes, part of the SIG networking. And it's been used for a lot, for many years. And I don't think it's going away for a while because the Gateway API is still quite new. But one of the main problem that I explained during the talk is that Ingress is very simple, which is a great thing.
Yeah, that's great.
But we've seen that maybe it was too simple. And because the Ingress resource in Kubernetes doesn't come with a controller. It's not like the replica set or the deployment doesn't come with its own controller part of Kubernetes. You have to deploy a controller on top, and there are tons of them. I couldn't name them all because there are a ton of them. The most popular one probably is going to be Nginx because they have a distribution on the Kubernetes project. So, but Nginx, Contour, Traffic, Istio, you name it. There are many projects that implement an Ingress controller. So because you can consider Ingress as an abstraction of a reverse proxy, an L7 reverse proxy. There are many more things that you can do on that level on networking. So all these implementations are starting to do small tweaks to the Ingress object through annotations or through middle CRDs and things like that to be able to do more. And the problem with that is that you cannot move from one implementation to the other because you're not really using Ingress anymore. You're using Ingress on steroids. You're using Ingress with more. So these same people, the people who are writing those controller, the people who were owners of the specification on the Ingress object, all these people gather together and say, okay, we need to fix it. We need to come up with a new set of APIs from scratch that solve all the problems that we have created with Ingress. And they decided only not to focus on L7, but also focus on L4 as well.
That's also now in Nginx an L4 router.
So that's the idea. So they want to create a specification. By the way, Gateway API is only the spec. It's like it's the specification, and the idea is that implementations who want to be compliant has to follow that new spec. So if you're Nginx and you want to do L4 routing, I didn't know that they were going to do that, but if you want, you can, and you expect people to use the Gateway API as a control plane for Nginx, you have to follow that spec. So, and they are being a little bit more strict on how you extend it or how you change it to avoid what happened with the Ingress object, and also the service object. It also happens. So that's a little bit the idea, and I think it's
and a pod is registering then with the Gateway API instead of a service?
So you have to have a service, so that doesn't go away.
Okay, great. Thank you.
that doesn't go away. The idea, but mostly what you would use the service for is to continue doing this abstraction of load balancing between different pods. But then to get external traffic in, you need to have a load balancer. You need to have an ingress, well, in this case, an HTTP route that they call it. But then that HTTP route sends traffic to the service object that does the actual load balancing between the different pods. So service doesn't go away, but it's mostly a cluster IP service.
Okay, cool.
Any other questions on the Gateway API?
No, I don't think so. I think you explained it perfectly. Thank you very much.
You answered all our questions in one story. Yeah, awesome. Great. So, to a more generic question, what do you expect to happen to Kubernetes and cloud-native environments in the coming years? Let's say the coming 5 years.
I really don't know. I wish I knew. I mean,
everybody wants to know.
Exactly.
the crystal ball.
The crystal ball. But I'm really interested to see, because one of the things, obviously, you never know what's going to happen, but you can see where investments are happening. And I see from big companies on this space, like VMware, Red Hat, they're investing a lot on WebAssembly, and so I'm really curious to see whether WebAssembly is the next, let's say, revolution in compute for the cloud, and whether it's going to cross the chasm or people are going to be still using the container runtime interface as today. But that's the thing that makes me feel like I should start thinking about learning about WebAssembly, because it feels like a lot of people are talking about it and you don't want to get behind.
Get behind, yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. I haven't heard about WebAssembly. Is it something familiar to you, Jan?
No, not yet. I have to learn about it also.
So, yeah, basically, if I understand correctly with WebAssembly, and I shouldn't be answering this because I have really no idea, but it's a technology to run any type of application on your browser.
Okay.
It was built for that. Like you could run not only running JavaScript, which is the default thing that you run on your browser, but you're able to run any type of Rust application, for example.
It sounds a little bit like the UWP project that Microsoft had. So you have one app, you program it one time, and it runs on formerly Windows Phone.
You call it Java?
No, not Java.
Yeah, but
Windows 10, Windows 11 in your browser. It's like one package that suits all.
Yeah, and apparently that WebAssembly has been around for a while, and that was the goal of WebAssembly. But a lot of people are now thinking about running WebAssembly applications on the server side. So instead of running your container, run on WebAssembly. And actually, I came back from one of the Lightning talks. I can't remember the person who was the speaker, but they just announced an operator to be able to run WebAssembly applications on your computer. So instead of running Docker containers, running WebAssembly apps.
Okay, cool.
I think we have to do a podcast about WebAssembly.
WebAssembly, yeah. And invite her back later. Yeah. So we can talk again about it. So what have you learned the past few years?
Cool.
Well, Ara, really thank you for taking your time to talking with us.
Yeah, sure, thanks for having me. It's been great.
And enjoy today, and hope to speak to you again in the future.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Okay.
ACC ICT is specialist in IT-continuïteit. Bij ACC ICT staat alles in het teken van continuïteit waarborgen voor bedrijfskritische applicaties. Of het nu gaat over Managed OTAP, Cloud en Kubernetes, ze geven hier invulling aan om door samen met hun klanten een toekomstbestendige strategie uit te stippelen voor het gehele proces van ontwikkelen tot en met productie. In dit tweede deel van de podcast gaan we in gesprek met Meg Stefuli. Zij is een van de belangrijkste schakels achter dit mooie event. Ze vertelt waarom ze de switch heeft gemaakt naar .NET Developer en wat ze er zo leuk aan vindt. Daarnaast geeft ze een aantal leuke inzichten over Kubernetes events en de toekomst van Kubernetes. We're sitting here with Meg Stefuli. I hope I pronounced it correctly. I ask everybody if I pronounce their name correctly, so welcome. Can you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Thank you very much for having me. So I'm Meg. I am Greek, living in the Netherlands for the last 13 years. I coming first in the Netherlands to complete my master. So it was immigration for studies. I was studying technologies in Greece. And over here, I got into a lot of different jobs. And eventually, I end up a few years ago to open my own practice as a payer, as a masseuse. And it was really great. The pandemic wasn't very helpful.
No,
still was going very well. And then I met Alessandro about 2 years ago, Alessandro Voza, and he's my partner. He introduced me basically, or reintroduced me to the IT world. I had a small work experience working as technical customer support by TomTom for the GPS.
TomTom. Cool.
Yes, a Dutch company, very nice. It was such a nice experience that it was one of the reasons why I had the discussion with Alessandra and said, I really like the environment. Being an entrepreneur, having your own business, it can be a bit lonely. And I did miss a lot the teamwork, which the IT offers. Alongside as when you're treating individuals one by one, definitely you have a deeper impact on that particular person. But with the IT world, you can deliver more to society. I don't want to underestimate the one-to-one offering.
It's also important.
Yes, very important. Everyone contributes on their own, and therefore supporting each other individually, it's a great thing. But through the IT, as we see today, we are having a big conference and we are helping 450 people at once.
Yeah,
you can imagine the impact on that is much bigger. The same also when you are working on an IT project and you are making people's life easier, creating an application or coding something that it will automate and give them more extra time in their life, make it easier, then they can focus eventually on their own development.
So what got you interested in developing in the first place?
I can say a little bit the previous background that had never left me, and then the more opportunities on the long term, the growth, of course, the higher pay.
Yeah, that's also good.
Let's be realistic. We work for money. We don't just work for pleasure. That's why also I'm keeping the massages as a hobby now. It was something that I really enjoyed very much, and I don't want to let it go. But not all dream jobs are possible to pay the bills or return the investment of what you put in.
Yeah.
Definitely the IT pays more. And if you have a little bit of the seed inside you, you can really grow. And that is what is intriguing for me. The growth, the personal development. As I say, we will change instead of CICD to CECD, so continuous education and continuous development.
Ah, well, that's a nice
that's
analogy.
cool.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Cool.
As of that, then also together with Alessandro as my partner, I think it was kind of inevitable to participate into conversations, going to meetups, and eventually having to organize this amazing KCD Amsterdam for this year. Yeah. And I love the community. So I love the passion that people have for what they do. They're so into it, and they love helping each other. And I definitely want to contribute to that.
Okay.
And what's the most exhilarating Kubernetes or project you have done so far?
I'm still a newbie at it, so I haven't really created a project of my own.
You contributed to project, or
I have duplicated some projects from others, and I'm using also some browsers where I can learn more by integrating Kubernetes there, so it's more on learning project basis than
but you're learning only Kubernetes or the whole ecosystem and Linux in itself, or are you learning to program?
I learn also to program.
And which languages are you learning?
C#. .NET developer.
Okay, cool.
So I'm following courses from Experience Academy.
Yeah.
And they're really cool. The bootcamp is really fast-paced. You learn a lot and you have a guidance. I have tried before self-studying more into JavaScript, which is very helpful, of course, having to switch to C# since it's both object-driven. You have some base from it, but self-studying with such a massive information online, it is chaotic. Having a tutor or a bootcamp that you follow is very essential if you want to go into real job fast. Otherwise, you would self-study forever.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I started half a year ago. I started also a self-study on the C# with edX. the Harvard CS50 online course. So they take you step by step to online seminars, assignments to create for you in a live environment. The setup is really, really crazy how they managed to pull off that educational platform. But it's really tough to do it on your own. Yes. The skill, you start easy with Hello World, and the next assignment is already making something.
Further,
it is really, really, really. So I can really relate to what you're saying. That if you have a tutor
with it, because I started when I was 10, so I grew up with it, and I know nothing else than IT.
Yeah,
that's my thing. Yeah, something else I can't. So and I like self-study.
Yeah.
So I am, but I don't understand if you come in the even programming, that's difficult. Start.
I think the mass information out there is the biggest problem, because you open an article and you say, okay, I'm gonna read the article to get an information of what is Kubernetes.
Yeah.
And then within this article you have 10 other words that you don't understand, and then from these 10 words you're gonna open 20 other tabs to read along to understand one article. But that makes it so complicated and so much time consuming and back and forward. When you have either if you participate in a community, in a chat, or if you have a tutor, and then you can make these 20 tabs basically 2-3 questions, then you would definitely understand faster and more accurate, I think.
But that's interesting, because I had a discussion some time ago. I started 30 years ago, but the youth of now is starting with Kubernetes, just like you, with programming, just like you. And there's a great course in that. Then we have, I started in DOS.
Yes.
There was no internet when I started.
There were only books.
Yeah, there were only books. So
maybe that's why for you it's a bit more convenient, the self-study, because you have a good fundamental base.
Yeah, but you're starting with the internet is already here. And it's a lot of information. So you can easily be overwhelmed with so much information.
Exactly.
Just choose the right one. Yeah, which one is the right one? You know, that's
there's a lot of misinformation also.
What do you expect to happen the coming years of Kubernetes or in software development?
I think since DevOps is here for a few years now and they are gaining more and more support from large companies, Kubernetes is here to stay. Let's put it that simple.
I like that too.
Yes, it is helpful. It manages security issues, making organizations to trust more. And I think this is the biggest trick, because I've heard other companies such as banks, which they play big role in the IT nowadays, that they were afraid so much all these years to go into cloud. But since things become safer and easier to use, and they have seen smaller companies how they are managing their containers and their environment, it becomes more trusted, therefore they go for it. So as long as we have these big organizations joining, I think there is just improvement that it will see in the coming years.
Okay. And do you think we're on the start of the hype or on the start of Kubernetes adoption, or where are we in the adoption rate? Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Well, Kubernetes has about 7 years that has been introduced, right?
Yeah.
So we would say that it's still a bit young. I would say it's a bit young. But since we will see larger organizations adapting to it and changing the old philosophy into DevOps philosophy, then we are going to the middle, and having those coming in, the jump can be fast. I think the more larger organizations joining the cloud mentality. So let's say that now we are almost in the middle. We can, in 2-3 years, accelerate really fast into the sense that, sure, we would need something even greater that we will create.
So it's going to be mainstream in like 4 years.
For sure.
So this event is going to be 4 times bigger, or 10 times bigger in 4 years.
Yes.
Cool.
I think so. It would be Great. Already we see more and more Kubernetes days popping up.
Yeah.
Back in 2019, the Kubernetes Community Days Amsterdam was the very first in Europe and in the world. And now we have Community Days London, Berlin, Barcelona, France, in Paris.
Are you also involved with those community days, or are you mainly focused on the
We are going
Netherlands?
as attendees. Because those are local ones. We have the KubeCon, which is the big one every
international
year.
one, yeah.
I think the locals should remain on local hands. Therefore, if they need help, certainly, such as we have supported KCD Ukraine, and we are there for them. The same goes for any other city that they want to do it. We can help, but usually it is on the hands of the locals, and all the decisions are made by them.
Yeah.
Is that because you've got KubeCon? That's a big one. Is this better than KubeCon?
I think there is no better or worse. It's very different because this is locals for the locals.
Okay.
So we have a lot of Dutch speakers. We have Dutch sponsors. We have also from the client side a lot of Dutch companies that they are using Kubernetes and they are interested to learn more. They're sending here their engineers to follow the workshops and the talks so they can get the latest news. KubeCon is more commercialized. It is much larger scale where you get sponsors from everywhere.
Yeah. And
You need to divide yourself a bit. Yeah. Here, keeping it also to a smaller numbers, you basically chain the community. And that was also the reason why we did it this year. We all so much want to support the community. We believe learning from each other and helping each other to grow is the way to go. That's why we support any open source projects the best way we can.
Yeah.
And creating such an event that they are 100% on volunteer base. The sponsors are supporting only the cost for the buildings, the caterings, and nothing more. These 7 months that we have worked on it, everything is on volunteer base.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And one thing that I noticed on your page is there is a heading that's called diversity and inclusion. What was the thought about specify that topic, because it's a very relevant topic in the society itself?
We did try also as much as possible to have a diversity in the talks as well and include more female, more...
Yeah, we saw that. And somebody came to me, it was from DataDog, and they said, there are lots of female speakers here. That's new.
Yes.
And that's awesome.
Yes, we did try. So even if it sounds a little bit unfair, we did choose the topics not only based on the content, but also on the speaker itself, in the sense if it's male or female, because we didn't want to end up with having just 2 females and 15
I think it's great
male.
to take it in account.
Yeah,
okay.
We did it on purpose, of course, because we think the choices that are made, they have an impact to the society in general. So if you are conscious of what you're doing, this is how you're going to shift the world.
Yeah. So what do you hope that the visitors take home when they leave the event today?
First of all, I hope they're going to make some friends. Yes. We meet so many people around. And on these small meetups that we do, we are the same people. Always bring a friend along. And then that's how you grow the community.
Yeah.
So when eventually you make a big event and then you see someone that you have seen just 1 or 2 times in a meetup, hopefully, since you spend 2 days now together, not just 1 hour in a meetup or 1.5 hours in a meetup, you can really exchange some deeper thoughts, get more connected, find some more common interests, and become more friends.
Yeah.
I don't mean friends for life, but you never know.
Yeah.
So this is the whole point.
No, but that's the vibe that you feel when you're here at this event. Everybody is friendly. Everybody wants to talk to you. You know, if you have a question.
I couldn't stop talking on the floor. So many people. So much fun.
Yeah, and I think that's the nice part of just a community event. Yeah, everybody is like-minded. Everybody is interested in each other. From what do you do with Kubernetes? Or what's the latest project you have worked on? Or what are the things you have experienced? Yeah,
exactly.
Great.
That's how we learn from each other. Okay, tell me, what did you do? Yeah. Oh, I've never thought about this. Okay, let me go home and try it. Or let me get my laptop right now. Can you show me? Mm-hmm. And that's how we learn from each other.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So the last question we had is, what do you want to say to the people in organizations that want to start with Kubernetes or wanting to make the same step as you did? So making the switch to a developer, and any motivational words of wisdom?
Well, I would say everybody should give it at least a try of Kubernetes. And if you're afraid to go full speed with it, just take a small project, try to deploy it, try to manage it with Kubernetes, and then you will see how easy it is, and therefore you're going to scale it up to the rest of your projects.
Okay. Well, Dave, perfect. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Deze podcast is een initiatief van ACC ICT en wij zijn te beluisteren op onze website k8spodcast.nl, via Spotify, Apple, Google Podcast en alle andere favoriete podcastproviders.